have here.
WeChat. Search. Doc. Business. Signal. Seeing AI. Double tap to open. Seeing AI. Menu. Quick help. Take picture. Button. Processing. Cancel. Button. A person holding a can of food.
Many tasks in our day-to-day lives require access to visual information, from picking out your favorite shirt to understanding what's inside the can you pulled from the kitchen cabinet. However, these mundane tasks can pose a challenge for blind and low vision people without access to necessary visual details. Thankfully, this challenge has not gone unanswered. The video we just showed was a demonstration of Seeing AI, an application developed by Microsoft that allows blind and low vision people to snap a photo and receive an AI-generated description of its contents. The research community has also worked to address this visual access problem. Accessibility researchers have sought to understand how BLV people use description applications similar to Seeing AI. Instead of using AI, they studied applications that are human-powered, meaning that human assistants receive the photo and provide its description. For instance, Brady and their colleagues created a taxonomy of BLV people's daily use cases for visual descriptions. Efforts like these and other prior work have taught us a great deal about BLV people's use cases for human-powered visual interpretations. But they leave us with an important question. Can we understand how BLV people use AI by only examining human-powered applications? As shown in the video earlier, companies like Microsoft have tried to leverage AI to develop assistive technology, providing BLV people with independent access to visual details on the fly. Researchers have also established the usefulness of human-powered description applications. Clearly, AI and human-powered applications can both address visual access needs. However, BLV people may use them in very different ways. Their sense of trust in the applications, perceptions of privacy while using them, and feelings of independence are very likely to differ when requesting information from an AI versus a human. But despite these potential differences, there has still been no examination of how AI-powered description applications are used by BLV people. Particularly with the growing presence of AI in our daily lives, there is a need to explore these applications to keep improving them as accessible technologies. We began exploring these AI-powered tools guided by two research questions. One, what are BLV people's use cases for AI-powered scene description applications? And two, how well are BLV people's needs addressed in these use cases?
We'll now discuss how we design a user study to address these research questions. So, we knew we wanted a way to capture the daily usage of an AI-powered application. We also wanted this usage to reflect the visual information people sought in their daily lives, like in their home, when they're at work, or at a restaurant, not in an isolated or unfamiliar study room. Now, this presented a dilemma because we couldn't follow participants around with cameras and microphones, but in all seriousness, we wanted to capture these moments whenever they happen. So we decided to conduct a diary study and recruited 16 BLV participants. In their diaries, participants recorded details every time they sought visual information using an AI-powered scene description application. Participants used the application for 2 weeks, and at the end of this period, we held interviews to clarify any questions we had about their usage. There were some challenges that came up with conducting a diary study, though. Ideally, we wanted participants to submit their diary entries immediately after they requested a visual description. In addition, we needed to make sure completing the diary entries was easy so that our participants would actually do it. This meant we had to connect the process of using a description application with the process of submitting an entry for easy, seamless submission. Our solution to this problem was to develop our own application. Here, we provided visual descriptions and immediately guided users to an integrated questionnaire. Data in every entry included a photo, the description they received, the photo taking location, and the reason for taking the photo, and scores indicating how much satisfaction and trust the user felt towards the description. In the following clip, we demonstrate the process of using the application and submitting a diary entry in our study.
iVisor. Take photo. Photo. Button. Take photo. Dimmed. Loading. Please wait. Wait. Results screen. A building with the glass front. Next.
Here, participants entered their location and what information they wanted from the description. Here, they scored how satisfied they were and how much they trusted the description.
On.
Finally, they enter any missing context.
Submit. Button. Submit. Alert. Are you sure you want to send? No. Yes. Yes. Button. Back button. Uploading photo. Returning to camera.
With this application, handling data collection, our next step after the study period ended was analyzing the data. For this analysis, we took both the participants' diary entries and transcriptions of their interviews. We used mixed methods to conduct both qualitative and quantitative analysis on these data. However, we only report on the qualitative methods in this video. You can read that more on our full paper to learn more about our quantitative analysis. We had 316 diary entries to analyze, as you saw in the first bullet point, and we also transcribed 16 interviews lasting between 50 and 90 minutes. Then we used open descriptive coding and thematic analysis to analyze both the entries and interviews. From this, we developed over 200 codes.
Now, let's dive into our findings. So, first and foremost, how did our participants use the description application? Well, our participants utilized the application almost every day during the study period, resulting in 11 categories of use cases we identified for AI-powered scene descriptions. Our most common use case was identifying specific subjects. This was when participants were trying to find a particular subject based on its features, like when someone was looking for their favorite shirt and wanted a description with enough detail to identify this shirt, instead of just one saying that there was a t-shirt on a hanger. This use case occurred in 128 out of 316 entries, around 40% of all our entries. Our second most common use case was almost the opposite of this one. We called it general interest in subject appearance. It was when participants were not seeking any specific visual information while taking the photo. They just wanted a general idea of what an object looked like, or sometimes they were just curious about how the application would describe something. This use case occurred in 59 out of 316 entries, around 19% of the data set. And finally, another popular use case for the application was building an understanding of the scenery. This occurred when participants were looking for a description of the environment or the weather around them, like checking if there was snow on the ground that day. We identified this use case in 54 out of 316 entries, around 17% of them. You can refer to our paper to learn more about the other use cases, but I wanted to leave you with one of the more unique ones we found. Using AI to win arguments with your friends. Let me set the stage for you on how this use case came up. One of our participants, during the course of the diary study, attended a conference with another BLV friend of his. They were sitting in an airplane, waiting to depart, with the airplane window open. This eventually led to a discussion about what was outside the airplane. A fairly simple question, but one they absolutely could not agree on. Both had completely different predictions for the view outside the airplane and how close they were to the airport, and they didn't want to involve some unsuspecting sighted passenger to tell them who was right. So, our study participant decided to use the AI application to settle it, which they both agreed would provide them with a fair and objective description of what was actually there. This use case demonstrates an interesting way that this participant and their friend positioned the AI as an arbiter for visual disputes between himself and another BLV person. While employing an AI arbiter wasn't as common as the use cases reported on our prior slide, it represents one of the many creative ways our participants use the application, and how the AI-powered descriptions could supply useful information in unexpected ways.
Considering all this, what are the key takeaways for the accessibility community? First, we found some novel use cases for AI-powered systems that had not been identified in prior work for human-powered systems. This includes our earlier example where participants use the AI as an objective arbiter to settle visual arguments between VLB people. We also found an AI-specific use case that we called testing the application, which occurred 12% of the entries in our dataset. This use involved challenging the application or submitting photos the participants already knew the content of to get a feel for how the application worked. From our discussions with participants, we found they would never do this with a human assistant and would consider it bothersome or even rude behavior. However, for an AI, continuous testing was crucial for them to understand how it worked, optimize their use of it, and see if it had improved through behind-the-scenes updates. Finally, we found important motivations behind these uses for AI-powered visual descriptions. Along with less common reasons like our earlier example, we also found that participants prefer using AI to avoid burdening their friends and family, especially if they thought a question was too trivial. They would rather not bother a human and use a quick tool instead. To support this desire, future AI applications could remind users that AI is an alternative to their social network, perhaps by adding the application as a special contact that they'll see in their phone before they might call up a family member or friend. We believe these points and our other findings can serve as a point of reference for future AI applications, helping them understand the most important use cases of their applications that they should optimize for during tech design. In summary, we present a study that investigated the uses of AI-powered scene description applications in the daily lives of VLB people and uncovered novel use cases and challenges with these applications. We invite you to take a look at our full paper and supplemental material where we included the data collected and the codes we generated during the analysis of our diary entries. You can also reach out if you have any questions or if you want us to send you our data. My email is reg258@cornell.edu and Jazmin's email is jc2884@cornell.edu. Thank you.